Hello, my friend. It's good to have you here again. For those of you who joined me last week, welcome back. For those of you who are new, my name is Marcus Reeve, the voice behind this channel's educational content. And I want to be honest with you from the very first sentence, as I always am. I present as a character, not a certified epidemiologist or expert in this field. What I do is read carefully, slowly, from the most trusted sources and my reliable friends at this field I can find, and the World Health Organization, the CDC, the ECDC, and try to bring you what I learn in plain, calm language. Especially if you are over 60. Especially if the world feels a little louder than it used to. A few days ago, I made a video about the Hantavirus outbreak. If you watched it, you'll remember we talked about what the virus is, where it comes from, why it almost never spreads from person to person, how to clean safely if rodents have been in your home, and what to say to a doctor if you ever needed to. That video answered the question, what do I do? Today's video answers a different question. Today, I want to tell you the actual story of what happened on that ship. Day by day, person by person. Because in the 2 weeks since the news broke, something else has been happening, quietly, behind the headlines. Stories have been spreading online, stories that aren't true. Stories that, if you believe them, will steal sleep from you that you don't need to lose. So today's video is a story. And it's a correction. I'm going to walk with you through what actually happened on the MV Hondius from the 1st of April to this very week. And along the way, I'm going to stop 3 times, to address the 3 biggest lies that are circulating about this outbreak right now. The 3 I've seen shared most often in places where people over 60 spend their time. I won't list them at the start. I'll bring them in as we walk, because that's how the truth works best. In context, in story, in the moment it matters. Now I want you to listen carefully to me until the end of the video. I'm sure you also want to learn more about this topic. Let's start. The 1st of April. A ship sets sail. On the 1st of April 2026, a Dutch-flagged cruise ship called the MV Hondius left the port of Ushuaia in Argentina. Ushuaia sits at the very southern tip of South America, the kind of place where the wind tastes of salt and ice, where people go when they want to see something most people never will. The ship was bound for Antarctica and the remote South Atlantic, on a long voyage to places like St. Helena and Ascension Island and Cape Verde, and eventually the Canary Islands of Spain. On board were 147 people, passengers and crew, from 23 different countries. Many of them, I imagine, in their 60s and 70s. The kind of trip you save for. The kind of trip you take when the children are grown and the time finally feels like your own. I want you to picture them in those first days, because the rest of the story will be easier to carry if you remember they were real people, with packed suitcases, with cameras, with plans. By the 24th of April, 23 days into the voyage, something began to go wrong. One of the passengers, an older woman, went ashore briefly at St. Helena with stomach symptoms. She didn't think much of it. Neither did anyone else. Cruise ships are full of small upsets. A bad meal, a long day, the rocking of the sea. But within hours, she was on a medical flight to Johannesburg, South Africa, deteriorating fast. She died on the 26th of April, the very day she arrived in the emergency department. On that same ship, on that same day, a man went to the ship's doctor with a fever, a cough, and difficulty breathing. 2 days later, his condition was bad enough that he had to be evacuated by air to South Africa as well. He went into the intensive care unit. By the 2nd of May, the World Health Organization had received the report. Something serious was happening aboard the MV Hondius. A third person, a German woman, had died on board. Tests came back, and a respiratory pathogen panel, the standard test for flu, COVID, and other usual suspects, came back negative for everything. But one test came back positive: Hantavirus. And here, my friend, is where I need to stop walking for a moment, because here is where the first lie began. The first lie. This is COVID 2.0. This is planned. I want you to know I take no joy in this part of the video, but I have to address it because in the 2 weeks since the news broke, I have seen this story shared again and again, sometimes by people I think are well-meaning, sometimes by people I am not so sure of. I want you to know I take no joy in this part of the video, but I have to address it because in the 2 weeks since the news broke, I have seen this story shared again and again, sometimes by people I think are well-meaning, sometimes by people I am not so sure of. Unverified assertions emerged, referencing a 2022 social media post that purportedly predicted a 2026 Hantavirus outbreak, similar to claims made about COVID-19. I want to walk with you through why that story doesn't hold up, gently, carefully, the way I'd walk a friend through it. First, about that 2022 post. Conspiracy accounts make thousands of predictions every year, hundreds about pandemics alone. When one of them happens to land near a real event, it gets shared. The hundreds that didn't land are forgotten. If I told you in 2022 that someday there would be an earthquake in California, and then in 2026 there was one, that wouldn't make me a prophet. It would make me a person who guessed something likely. That's all that 2022 post was. A guess that nobody remembered until it was useful to remember. But here's the part that matters more, and I'd like you to hear it from a real expert rather than from me. The World Health Organization's Director for Epidemic and Pandemic Management, Maria van Kerkhove, the woman who briefed the world during COVID, said this at a recent briefing: "This is not COVID. This is not the start of a COVID pandemic. This is not the same situation we were in 6 years ago." I trust her, and I'll tell you why. She was wrong about almost nothing during COVID, and when she was uncertain, she said so. She is paid to call emergencies an emergency. If this were the start of one, she would say it. The reason this isn't COVID 2.0 is simple, and we covered it briefly in the last video, but it bears repeating today. Hantavirus does not spread the way COVID did. The Andes virus, the specific strain on that ship, is the only hantavirus known to spread between humans at all, and even then, it only spreads through close, sustained contact in enclosed settings, not the air of a supermarket, not a brief conversation, not a passing handshake. Close and sustained contact, day after day, in tight quarters, like the inside of a cruise ship cabin. That is the entire reason this outbreak happened on a ship and not in a city. Because a ship is one of the very few places where ordinary people share air and surfaces with the same small group for weeks on end. Your local grocery store is not that place. Your church is not that place. Your bus is not that place. So please, and I'm asking you this from one heart to another, If a friend or a relative sends you that 2022 screenshot, you don't have to argue with them. You don't have to win the conversation. Just know for yourself that it isn't true. The peace of mind that comes from knowing is worth more than the satisfaction of being right. Now, let me walk you back to the story. The 6th of May, a name for the enemy. 4 days after the WHO received its first report, the laboratories had their answer. The specific strain was named. On the 6th of May, it was confirmed that the Andes virus, a hantavirus normally found in South America, was responsible for the outbreak. The Geneva University Hospital in Switzerland was one of the laboratories that helped identify it after a Swiss passenger from the ship was hospitalized there. Now, the name Andes virus sounds frightening, but here is something to hold on to. It is named after a mountain range. It is normally carried by a long-tailed mouse that lives in a specific part of South America. The early reports suggested Ushuaia, the port where the ship set sail, as a possible site of infection. But there is no recorded case of the virus ever occurring there. Ushuaia sits about 1,500 kilometers south of the endemic range of the long-tailed mouse known to carry the virus. So the scientists are still working it out. Maybe the exposure happened at an earlier stop. Maybe someone picked it up on a pre-cruise excursion. We may not know for some time, and that's all right. Science working slowly in public is not the same thing as science hiding something. It's the same patient process that, over decades, has given us most of what we know about every other virus in the world. Around this same time, something else began to happen. Not on the ship, but on phones and televisions all over the world. And it brings me to the second lie I want to address with you. The second lie. Ivermectin will cure it. Before we move on to the next episode, I kindly ask you to subscribe to my channel and like the video. Some of you may remember this story from the COVID years. A drug called Ivermectin, a real medicine, mostly used for parasites in animals and sometimes in humans, became the center of a debate that confused millions of people and, I believe, cost some of them their lives. In recent weeks, misleading claims have circulated suggesting ivermectin as an effective treatment for hantavirus, including allegations that medical professionals are suppressing this information or that it blocks viral replication. These assertions lack scientific evidence. I want to be very specific about why this is not true, because I think specificity is its own form of respect. The World Health Organization, just a few days ago, made a public statement to counter this exact claim. The WHO dismissed claims suggesting ivermectin is an effective treatment for hantavirus, saying there is currently no scientific evidence supporting such assertions. But here's the part I want you to remember, because it's the part that no one tells you on social media. Hantavirus replicates in the cytoplasm of a cell, not in the nucleus. The mechanism by which ivermectin is sometimes claimed to work against viruses, blocking entry into the nucleus, has no effect on a virus that doesn't go to the nucleus in the first place. It is like trying to lock the front door of a house when the visitor is already in the kitchen. I tell you this not to embarrass anyone who has shared these posts. People share them because they are afraid, and because someone they trust said it would help. Both of those impulses are human. But I want you to have the actual answer. If you or someone you love ever develops hantavirus, the treatment is what doctors call supportive care. There is no specific antiviral treatment for hantavirus. Supportive care is the standard treatment. That means oxygen, fluids, intensive monitoring, and sometimes a machine called ECMO that helps the lungs and heart work while the body fights. There is no pill. There is no home remedy. There is only the hospital, and getting there quickly. That is why the last video and this one both keep coming back to the same simple sentence to say to your doctor. I was recently in a place where rodents may have been present. Please consider whether this could be hantavirus. That sentence saves lives. Ivermectin does not. Let me bring you back to the story now. The 10th of May. The ship reaches Tenerife. After the diagnosis, the world began to move quickly. The MV Hondius had stopped briefly at Praia, the capital of Cape Verde, where local officials sent medical supplies. The ship couldn't disembark passengers there. The facilities weren't set up for it. So Spanish authorities agreed to receive the ship in the Canary Islands. On the 10th of May, 3 days ago as I'm recording this, the MV Hondius docked in Tenerife. After arrival of the cruise ship at Tenerife on 10 May, disembarkation and repatriation of passengers was carried out and completed on 11 May. Passengers were taken off carefully, given medical examinations, and put on charter flights back to their home countries. 6 European countries received passengers: Canada, the United States, Switzerland, South Africa. 16 American passengers arrived at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. 15 of those passengers were being monitored in a quarantine unit, and another, who had tested positive, was in a biocontainment unit. That biocontainment unit, by the way, holds one of the more remarkable people in this story, a man named Dr. Stephen Kornfeld. Dr. Stephen Kornfeld was taking the trip of a lifetime aboard the cruise when he was called on to care for other passengers who fell ill. When the ship's own doctor became sick, Dr. Kornfeld, a passenger, stepped in to treat the others. He, too, eventually tested positive. He spoke to reporters from his quarantine in Nebraska. He said the time was passing quickly. He said he was spending a lot of time on WhatsApp. There is, I think, a quiet dignity in that. But the moment those passengers disembarked, something predictable happened. And here, my friend, is where the third lie was born. The third lie. They've spread it everywhere now. The moment the photographs came out, passengers in protective gear, masked workers, ambulances on the dock at Tenerife, social media filled with a particular kind of post. Upon the release of disembarkation photographs, social media saw a surge of posts asserting that the virus had already spread globally due to passengers traveling home and interacting with various personnel, creating an impression that containment was impossible and immediate action like locking doors was necessary. I want to walk through this carefully because the fear here is reasonable on the surface. After all, we watched something similar happen with COVID. We learned that some viruses spread before symptoms appear. We learned to mistrust the calm voices that said everything was fine. But this is not that virus. Let me explain why. First, the cruise passengers are not freely wandering the world. The original passengers have all disembarked and been evacuated. Many are quarantined in their home countries. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has classified the outbreak as a Level 3 emergency response. 16 Americans went directly from the airport to a quarantine center in Nebraska. Others are being monitored by health authorities in their home countries. During the ship's stop in St. Helena, 30 passengers disembarked, all of whom have been contact traced by the UK Health Security Agency. The system is working. People are not loose. They are being watched carefully by trained teams. Second, and this is the part I want you to really hear, Hantavirus is not COVID. The Andes virus, even in its rare cases of person-to-person spread, requires close, sustained, prolonged contact. The risk to the EU-EEA general population is very low. That is the official European assessment as of 3 days ago. The World Health Organization has said the same thing. The CDC has said the same thing. At this time, the risk to the American public is extremely low. Now, there is one piece of news from this week I do want to share with you honestly, because I don't want to leave anything out. The Illinois Department of Health said this week it is investigating a potential case of hantavirus in a Winnebago County resident that is not connected to the MV Hondius outbreak. The resident lives in Winnebago County, has not traveled internationally, and has not come in contact with individuals associated with the MV Hondius outbreak. They are suspected to have acquired a North American strain of the virus while cleaning a home where rodent droppings were present. I tell you this not to alarm you, but to show you the actual texture of hantavirus in the world. The Illinois case is exactly the kind of case we talked about in the last video. Someone cleaning an enclosed space where rodents had been. Unlike the strain of hantavirus in the cruise outbreak, the North American strains are not known to spread from person to person, health officials said. This is what real hantavirus looks like, almost always. One person, one quiet exposure in a closed space. Not a wave, not a tide, not a plague rolling across nations. One quiet exposure. That has been the pattern of this virus for 50 years, and that is the pattern it is following now. So when you see a post telling you that the cruise passengers have spread it everywhere, please pause before you share it. Please pause before you let it shape your week. The truth, the boring, careful, slow-moving truth, is on your side here. Where things stand this week. Let me tell you exactly where the numbers are as of the day I am recording this. As of the 12th of May, there are 9 confirmed cases and 2 suspected cases. There have been 3 deaths, 2 of which have been confirmed as caused by the Andes virus. The 3rd death is still being investigated. Some patients are recovering. Some are still in intensive care. A British passenger was sent to Johannesburg for treatment in a critical but still stable condition. 11 cases. Across a ship of 147 people, over more than a month. That is what the spread of this virus actually looks like, even in the conditions most favorable to it. Inside a closed ship, with the same people sharing the same spaces day after day. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this comparison. 11 cases in 6 weeks on a ship designed for close contact. Compare that, in your memory, to what you saw in the first 6 weeks of COVID. The difference is the truth. Closing. From one heart to another, again. So let me bring it together for you. The MV Hondius set sail on the 1st of April. By the 2nd of May, the world knew something was wrong. By the 6th, the virus had a name. By the 10th, the ship had reached safe harbor. By the 12th, 11 people were confirmed or probable cases, and the world's public health systems were doing the careful, unglamorous work they were built to do. Testing, tracing, treating, monitoring. In that same window, 3 stories spread across the internet. That this was COVID 2.0 planned years in advance, that a horse deworming pill would cure it, that every passenger had become a carrier roaming the world. None of those stories are true. They were not true on the day they were first posted, and they have not become true since. I am telling you this, and I'll say it once more with care. Not because I think you would believe these things easily. You have lived a long life. You have seen many fears come and go. But I know that the people who share these stories are often people you love. Friends, neighbors, family members. They send them because they care about you. And you may not have wanted to argue. You may have just wanted to know for yourself what was true. Now you know. The actual story of the MV Hondius is the story of a virus we have understood for 50 years, behaving exactly the way that virus was always going to behave, in the one kind of place where it could spread. And the actual story of the misinformation is older still. The same playbook from COVID, repeated word for word, hoping you wouldn't notice. You noticed. That's why you're here. Take care of yourself, my friend. Talk to your doctor about anything that concerns you, because your own doctor knows you in a way no video ever could. And if someone in your life over 60 is worried about this outbreak, confused, frightened, scrolling, please share this video with them, not to scold them, just to give them a calm voice that walks them through the actual story and shows them the lies for what they are. Thank you for watching till the end. Please leave a comment and subscribe if this helped you, and share it with anyone who you think might need it. See you.